We have a very special treat to take us to the lunch break. We have amongst us Nicole Pederson-McKinnon. She's come down from Queensland today. Her mission in life is to educate Australia with financial smarts. And she does that by talking at high schools and talking at corporate events. And she's also a prominent commentator that writes for Fairfax and a few money magazines. She's appeared on television, channels 7, 9 and 10, and also YouTube. So if you're keen to sort of hear some more of what Nicole has to say, then please have a look at her YouTube channel. Most recently, though, she's been asked to help with the government's Money Smart program. And Money Smart's a program that aims to educate everyone on increasing their financial literacy. She helped launch that in Canberra a couple of months ago, being one of its key advisors. I would love to tell you a little bit about Nicole's story and her journey in this vision-impaired sort of journey of hers, but I might leave that to her because I think it's a great story. So I'd like to put your hands together for Nicole Pederson-McKinnon, please.
Thank you so much, Matt. I'm going to have to just adjust this for the height. And if I was taller, I'd be able to see with these eyes better as well. But anyway, I'll persevere. So I talk a lot, as Matt alluded to. I talk about finance all the time. I have never talked about this before. I've only just written about it for the first time, actually. So you might have to bear with me because I'm really... Well, I don't even know, but I don't think I'm good at this. I really don't. This is, first off. I can talk about finance till I'm blue in the face. We'll see how we go about this. This topic is tricky and I may cry. And those are tears of a journey, like a good journey. Plus, I've still got flashlights stuck in my head, so I don't know about you guys, but, like the morning's been really intensive. Those speakers were just so incredibly inspiring. Okay, so I'm a bit different, right, because I am sighted. And I've always preferred to kind of pretend there was nothing to see with me. Get it? I make bad jokes when I'm uncomfortable. But in my field, I kind of need to, right? Besides, my eye injury was something that happened to me. Just like it's something that can be bestowed on you, it's not something that defines me. I was born fully sighted with matching big, probably unfortunately, brown eyes. So this is me. I've never seen this photo before. My parents have all these on slides. I got them to dig them up during the week. I don't love looking at them either, so I've never really asked. Do you know what I mean? But you can't really tell because it's the 1970s. The photographic equipment was bad. The SLR never had the film wound on right, so, every social event or wedding would go past and Dad wouldn't have put the film in properly, so that was always a bit of an issue. Anyway, I found this one where you can see a little bit my injury, but, not very well. I'm sorry about that. So we'll rewind to 1979. Let me find somewhere I can hold this so I can properly see. There we go. That's not injury, this is just age. So we'll rewind to 1979. I was 4. Don't tell anyone because I'm having another 40th birthday party next weekend. It will be my 4th. I love a party. And I invite all the same people, but they seem to forget each year. They go, didn't you already turn 40? It's really funny. So it was the 1970s, right? And the child-raising ideals in the 1970s were a little bit different from today. I was lucky I wasn't juggling fire wearing polyester, to be honest. What I was doing was I was wandering around our very quiet cul-de-sac and I found a group of kids, friends, looking at something fascinating. So I lined up beside them. They were watching a neighbour build one of those wire fences. You know, the ones with the crisscrosses? And they have that heavy wire and you have to wrap it around to attach it to all the poles. So they were watching someone do this. And he needed another piece of wire. So the kids were all standing there in a line. There would have been 5 or 6 kids, I don't know. And he had this coil of wire, which he cut. And if you know anything about wire, and especially that heavy-duty stuff, it has a hell of a recoil on it. And I'm going to read this properly. it recoiled on him with full force. And in probably a 1 in a million shot, it went straight through my pupil, straight through my retina and into my brain. Sorry, I know it's horrible to hear. I know. It wasn't tops to experience, but I was so unlucky, and yet I was so lucky. I wasn't killed. I wasn't brain damaged. Well, hopefully. I've been told there's absolutely nothing that can be done for my vision. Like from that day, that was it with this one, gone. It's my real eye, by the way. Oh, it's not a prosthetic so far, I guess. So my talk is a little bit different to the ones we've heard before because I don't have the incredible sight challenges that the amazing Brodie, Lara and Renee have talked to you about today. I have some, tiny ones, and they're quite amusing sometimes, and I'll explain those later on. But my challenge was navigating a world when every single person I knew was fully sighted and I looked different, very obviously physically different. And I haven't actually told Matt, where is he? We had a conversation a few months ago and it was actually really emotional. I don't know if you got that from me. I was sat in a car. It was really emotional because I've actually never spoken to anyone before, ever, who had sight challenges. And that seems ludicrous, right? But it's never occurred to me to kind of look someone up or find a chat room, or I've always said, no, I've got this, I'm fine, everything's fine, nothing to see. So that's sort of the background to it. So I have significant scarring. My world is technicalities in the finance that I do, but in this one, I sort of prefer not to remember the details, I think, of it. But I have significant scarring. My pupil burst, I'm sure not the technical term. So my eye is very, very black, and there's a big scar, where the repair was done, etc. And then, of course, it doesn't work, so it just wants to do its own thing, or it did at that stage. So for my eye to look this good, I've had, and it's okay at the moment, it's pretty good at the moment. I've had so far 6 surgeries. I was comprehensively cross-eyed all the way through primary school until high school, and there will undoubtedly be more procedures. At the same time as I had my first squint operation when I was 12 years old, I've now had 3, and my ophthalmologist says that he won't operate on me anymore because the scarring's so bad now. My parents took me to a hand-painted contact lens place. Bearing in mind, this is like early 80s, so all this was pretty, there wasn't a lot of technology, and they didn't know anything about it, and they didn't think it mattered anyway, So they took me to a hand-painted contact lens place. It was terrible, like to try and match, and to hide the scarring so people would look quite so much. It was terrible, it was expensive, and I would routinely put my fingernail through it. They were like $300 each. It was ridiculous. And I'd get infections because they weren't very, they didn't know about oxygen permeability in that era and all that. So now I use an off-the-shelf coloured contact lens that looks okay because I've got fairly bog-standard brown eyes, so I'm lucky, again, in that respect. So as is often the case with traumas at age 4 or 5, my accident is my first memory. My husband's lung collapsed when he was 4, when he dived into a pool. Also his first memory, right? It's just how it goes. I remember the fence. I remember the line of kids. I remember nothing. And then I remember getting carried by my dad into the car. They said, forget the ambulance, take us straight to Royal Brisbane Children's Hospital, which was about 45 minutes drive, where I spent the best week of my life. It was so much fun, I can't even tell you. Apparently they had to repair everything, naturally. Then I got cataracts. That's probably not the right thing to say because I assume I got a cataract, but everyone says cataracts, right? So that obviously had to get removed. Like I say, I'm light on the details. I don't remember any of that. I don't remember one single thing about that. What I do remember is a ward full of 30 kids, all wearing eye patches, all of whom had come off second best with a pair of scissors. Every single one except for me. So I'm so paranoid about my kids, I cannot tell you. But, it's natural, I suppose. I remember I was given an entire packet of lolly bananas and I could eat it all. It was absolutely amazing. And they had the best, boldest creche there ever, right? So obviously it's a generic children's hospital. So there were people, broken legs, broken arms, they're in wheelchairs. There was all sorts of rigging to hold up various limbs that had, accidents had befallen these poor kids. And they got them doing the hokey pokey. It's like, put your left cast in, put your right, wheel your back. It was hilarious. It was so much fun, so much better than my boring creche. As I'm sure you can attest, kids are amazing at coping, especially young ones like me, which is another piece of luck, right? They really don't know any different, and we've seen that theme come up a lot already today. I met up with a dear friend of mine recently whose daughter has a syndrome whereby she is small. She has some vision and some hearing loss and many other challenges. She's now 8 and she was born with this. They've never known where it will end up, and she has to have very regular, very extensive tests that take several days in the hospital. And my friend was complaining about, her daughter being a bit of a pain in the butt, basically. But she says to me, she'll whinge about the small stuff, and then when she's in the hospital, she will bring it for the big stuff. Doesn't faze her remotely because it's what she's known. She's used to it. So I'm now, oddly, often on television. And I'm just going to show you a quick video. I don't seem to have a clicker here. Do you want to do it for me anyway? To give you an idea of what it is that I now very weirdly do. I guess my purpose and my passion stem from adversity. My parents were coffee culture trailblazers, and way back in the 1980s they borrowed to buy a coffee shop. The world wasn't ready, and the 5 years that my family spent scrimping and saving to repay the debt taught me an invaluable lesson. Paying interest is just wasting money. Earning interest is beautiful. On the average $360,000 mortgage, that saving is nearly $400 a month, or nearly $5,000 a year.
At the age of 15 or 16, a thing called compound interest is bordering on magic. Say you can save $6 a day and get an 8% investment return. By the time you're 60, you will be a millionaire. Better still, $900,000 of that money will be free.
I've been in the money media in the UK and Australia for 2 decades now, and I didn't want to just write about it anymore. I wanted to show and tell people how much better their lives could be. So I devoted a year to developing the Money Mentor Ways adult education financial program and tools. It was working as an ambassador for ASIC's education arm and presenting a talk at a university with the fabulous Noel Whittaker that I realised, staring at blank faces, that most people graduate from school knowing more algebra and Shakespeare than anyone else, but having very little real-life money smarts.
You may never have thought about financial security in the cosy embrace of your parents' home and handouts. But on the one hand, it means there's always food on your table. And on the other, it means a life of options. To work where you want, live where you want, to travel when you want. I talk money in words that I hope young people understand, shamelessly name-dropping celebrities I've worked with.
Hey, when you were a kid, your first experience with banking was probably with the Dolomite.
Showing TV segments and using my tools and apps to show them exactly how soon they can achieve their most precious goals, like schoolies, their first car and travel.
According to our next guest, the same principles apply when it comes to getting your health and your wealth in shape.
Our money mentor and personal trainer this morning, Nicole Pederson-McKinnon.
Just like getting your body fit, mindset is where it's all.
Well, Generation Rent, as they're being called, shouldn't despair. They really shouldn't.
Skip that
in
one
everything
forward
I
for
do,
me, if
I
you
try
could.
to put a positive
Thank you
spin
so
on
much.
things. After all,
So that just
people
gives you an
starting out
idea of
have
what
an
it is
incredible
that my
asset
life
parents
is
don't
now.
have, and that's
Okay.
time to. And the thing is, that wouldn't be my life now if this hadn't happened to me. I firmly believe that. So while there's no doubt that in a very superficial world, my eye has hurt my progress, again, I wouldn't be on television, I don't think, if it hadn't happened. Okay, so this is how I see it. First of all, I wouldn't have the resilience or the rebound ability. I just wouldn't. Or probably the go-getter attitude that you need. Heard a story recently. There's this great show called My Next Guest Needs No Introduction with Dave Letterman. It's on Netflix. It's really fantastic. And he's interviewed these amazing people like Obama. George Clooney is one of them. And I was watching this the other day, and George Clooney said something that was like a light bulb going off for me. He goes, yeah, when I was in year 12, I had Bell's palsy. So his face drooped. George Clooney, possibly the most gorgeous man on earth. Yeah. His face drooped. And I went, oh, that's why he's such an awesome guy. Otherwise, he might be a bit of a twat, right? I mean, he could afford to be. But that's kind of my point, is that if you can't rely on your looks, then you have to dig deep and you have to find traits in yourself and strengths in yourself that make up for that, really. You have to hone and access those. Second point, I wouldn't have been into finance. So because this happened to me at a neighbour's house, there was a very small liability payment. So as opposed to racking up credit card debt, I suppose when I was young, I was learning how to invest in the stock market because I didn't think I should ever spend any of that money and I thought I had a responsibility to grow it. It's just the way I viewed it. It's a very small amount of money, but I was investing from 18 years old. So again, that shaped my career. I didn't do one single television journalism subject, not one single. So I've got a journalism degree and a psychology as well, which again, I think my eye all fed into me wanting to go down the psychology route too. I didn't do one single television subject. My sister-in-law is Pederson-McKinnon on Channel 9, and she's amazing. Was even back then, she's an amazing broadcast journalist. And that was kind of her thing, plus, my eye. So I just did print. That's what I was going to do. But then, when I was a magazine editor at the Fin Review, I met a Channel 7 producer. She met me and she's like, I think you should be on television. I'm like, are you crazy? She asked me to be in a story. And then they just kept asking me. And before I knew it, I found myself in the public eye. Sorry. There I go with the bad puns again. It was literally by accident, not design, that brought me here. Do you know what I mean? And look, I've apparently made it. I'll show you another very quick one. I've recently appeared with ScoMo, just days after he took over as our new Prime Minister.
Our new Prime Minister says anyone unhappy with Westpac's decision to hike its mortgage rate should change banks. Scott Morrison says the bank that recorded a half-year profit of $4 billion needs to be held to account.
After spending months telling us they're always here to help,
Good finance update too.
heroes to zeros for some. Westpac's 0.14% hike adds more than $500 a year for many and includes their subsidiaries, St George, Bank of Melbourne, Bank SA and RAMS. And the other major banks?
I think it's almost certain the others will follow suit.
Adding to the anger, the official cash rate remains at record lows. Here, the reserve rate since 2010 compared to the Big Four. The gap's getting bigger, now almost 4%. The Prime Minister says it could be time to ditch and switch.
If you don't like what Westpac's done, go to another bank.
With the Royal Commission into Banking about to deliver its first findings, cynics accuse Westpac of raising funds to cover potential fines. From the CEO,
we acknowledge that it's a very difficult environment for banks. I mean, you can imagine that making a decision like this at this time is not something that we relished.
He blames overseas money rates.
Critics ask why Westpac couldn't cover those costs using just some of their profits. $4.2 billion in the last half year. Westpac claims it has been for the last 6 months, but couldn't keep going any longer.
From personal finance experts, the PM is right. Switch.
You can get rates way down, near 3.5%, and that saving is tens of thousands of dollars. It's so worth a phone call.
Chris Reason, 7 News.
Okay, so ScoMo was in his trackies or jersey in that little clip there. They obviously caught him on the run somewhere. What you can't see is they also caught me on the run. I'm actually wearing my slippers on my driveway at the Sunshine Coast as I frantically packed to get on another plane to come to Sydney to actually speak at New South Wales Parliament House. And it kind of speaks to the fact that TV is fundamentally fake. It just is, okay? Everything you see is an illusion, and it's an illusion of perfection, which is not right. Besides my surgeries, when I'm on television, I wear 2 coloured contact lenses to try and match the colour and the reflection. Normally, and now, I only wear 1. So it doesn't look as good, but I can see. I can't really see through the other tinted one, so it's a horrible feeling. If you ever see me stumbling and bumbling on a live thing, it's because I can't read a slide and I'm desperately trying to remember the numbers. I should be doing psychology interviews where the numbers don't change every day, shouldn't I? Indeed, I was emceeing the launch of the National Financial Literacy Strategy, as Matt said, at Canberra Parliament House recently, trying to peer through these lenses on a dark lectern. And I was concentrating so hard I stuffed up my own name. But then it is Pederson-McKinnon, so it is challenging. But I still look different. And looking different brings its own challenges in the very superficial world of media and social media. And to help as many people as possible take control of their finances and secure their best lives, I have to be on everything. If we go to the next slide, please. So the most common web search for me, you know how Google helpfully suggests things you might be looking up, it's not who's who of Australian women, Nicole Pederson-McKinnon. It's not journalism awards. It's not editorships. It's not keynotes to get women more financially savvy. It's not my school's program. It's not my YouTube channel. It's Nicole Pederson-McKinnon I. Right? So frustrating, so annoying. But it kind of reminds me every single day, because I have to Google myself all the time. My husband will always walk behind me and go, "You're just Googling yourself again." But I have to get the URLs of my work so that I can share it on social media. So I see this every single day. I get reminded of possibly the worst day, you know? So that's kind of tough 38 years later. So I get that people are just curious, and that's all that it is. And that's why I recently went public with a story in the Sydney Morning Herald. As I said, my eye doesn't define me, but if people need to know about my eye and how I look to get past it and concentrate on what I have to say, which I consider really important, then that's okay. That's fine. And that's when I found the Save Sight Institute, another piece of good luck, and decided to use my situation to try and bring them more publicity. I contend with some relatively insignificant practical problems compared with the truly inspiring people we've heard from this morning, because I am sighted. Depth perception, not good. My car, yes, I'd like an oversized Dodgem car, please. That would be fantastic. My car has scrapes, big scrapes now, as of last week, on every single corner. But, you know, that is what it is. Everyone knows to stay away from me in the school car park. I have visual vertigo, because of the inadequate kind of signals that go to my brain in terms of my balance. So I've had to kind of work through that and figure out what on earth that was, because normal doctors didn't have a clue, right? And my scoliosis and related injuries have certainly been exacerbated by that over a lifetime. It's lucky I survived childhood too, because my mum became so protective of me after my accident that she would routinely kind of shove me into traffic to get me away from a lawnmower 100 metres away that might throw a stone, right? Because this eye was really precious. So that's a family joke that, you know, I got really lucky in so many ways. Oh, and now I'm the happier side of 40. I'm not able to read as much very easily. But I think this eye it feels quite fatigued nowadays, because I was told recently it's doing double the work, which I guess makes sense. But forget social media. As a child with an obvious physical imperfection, school was still the hardest thing that I have ever done. And with small children yourselves, it's important to know this. There's nothing more affirming, right, than getting chosen last in a team every PE lesson. Do they still nominate team leaders and get them to alternately pick? Seriously. Who wants to win is going to pick the kid with no depth perception in the ball game? So there I was, last to get picked every single PE lesson. It's great. Character building. But you know what? That made me work harder to find the things I was good at. And there were a few. Again, it was mostly simple curiosity. What's wrong with you? Why do you look like that? For any ignoramuses who are nasty about my eye, and if you ever come across them, if your kids ever come across them, ignoramuses is the right word, I recommend stony face, okay? Inscrutable, unaffected, uninterested even, literally, it will shut it down. Smarter comebacks and deflection with humour. Maybe channel some George Clooney in there if that helps your kid. And you know what? Sometimes I fought back with my words too. Your reactions and your words are your defence. Usually, you need to make it so boring for bullies that they leave you alone and they'll get past it like you. The good news is you'll be a better person for it. They certainly won't. As they say, it's character building, which is code for it's rubbish on the way, but it works out okay. But for the parents in the room, don't diminish this. The along the way part can be really, really tough. From adults, the advice I always got was a semi-brush off, and brain once the 1980s as well, a semi-brush off of, it doesn't matter what you look like. And it doesn't. It shouldn't. But kids need concrete coping strategies to deal with the different situations they might find themselves in. And you know what? My dad would drop me off to primary school every morning with what became my life's mantra. Metaphorically speaking, sock it to 'em, Cole. I feel like I did most days. Through it all, I've been far more concerned for someone else anyway, and that's the man that cut the wire. That's got to be pretty hard to live with, and I know he's really struggled with it. My dad told me just the other day that when he came for help, when they yelled, the first thing he said to the man was, well, there's some swearing, but the first thing he said to him after that was, she's going to be on TV. What have you done? I don't know how my dad thought that at 4 years old, but they still live one house apart 38 years later. Exactly the same houses, one house apart. And their relationship has moved well past this. And for me, I'm constantly trying to impress on him that I've not missed a beat. You know, I always say I've looked a lot of ways, get it, but I've never looked back. Now, this is all pretty raw for me at the moment because randomly, my 4-year-old girl, well, she's now 5, but when she was 4, I discovered that she's got some kind of hereditary disease hereditary condition, I should say, that we have no idea where it comes from. But she's severely long-sighted. So we've had 5 increases in her prescriptions so far. She's up at 11 and we're not close to her being able to see. So we're just starting that journey and those investigations. We don't know why. I'm told that surgery, corneal surgery or transplants are probably the only thing that's going to help her, and that wouldn't be until she was an adult. It's not really my place to tell her story, but I hope that I am well placed to help her in that journey. But it does upset me rather that she will go through some of the same things that I went through. But she wanted me to share with you our little mantra that we do, which is really oddly visual, right? Rather than verbal. And it goes like this. We love it because whatever's going on around, it doesn't interrupt what's happening. It goes like this. Sign language, I love you. Turn it over. Spider-Man throwing a web because she has superpowers. And then rock because she's got to rock the day and have a brilliant time. And she's constantly going, Mummy, do the thing. Yeah. And off she'll chat. Like, she's just awesome. She's not missing a beat. So I'm so conscious that we're a little bit over, but I think we're running a little bit behind. So I'll try and wrap it up quickly. For her and possibly for me and for many people in this room and for the 1,800 babies born with significant vision impairment or blind every year in Australia, and for all the extra people who will experience deterioration in their sight as we live longer and longer, because that's going to be a really big thing, right? We need to know more about vision loss prevention and restoration. Now, my husband builds apps for the deaf and hearing impaired. He's been doing it for 7 years. His company built the national relay service that allows the deaf and hearing impaired to make phone calls, to call each other, which is very cool. He's won Telstra Innovation Awards for his work. And here's the thing. Ears and deafness, it's basically curable in kids. There's been so much fantastic research with cochlear implants. Kids don't have to live with that anymore. But with blindness, that's not the case, right? So we need that kind of progress in vision loss. So spread the word about the importance of it to everyone you know. As I'm sure you know, the Safe Sight Institute is fully grants and donations. So it's a really important thing. But you know what? My husband is totally tilting his development company now to voice-first technology. So forget about the deaf and hearing impaired. Apparently he's over them, right? He's going voice first. So what Greg was speaking about there, like the Amazon Alexa, the Google Home, he thinks this is going to be so revolutionary and it's going to be the way we interact with devices using our voices going forward, which for vision impaired people means the world is going to come to you. So it's a really fantastic development. Finally, I want to share a quick story. It's a bit embarrassing, actually. I was back at school on Tuesday, my high school. on Tuesday. And I was in the car park. I delivered my Smart Money Start presentation to Year 12, which I love doing every year. And I was in the car park talking to my mum because she still works at the school, still in the same house, still works at the school. Yes, she was my teacher sometimes as well. Also embarrassing. So I was standing there and I was setting up my tripod to do the piece to camera for social media because, you know, that's the weird world I live in. So I'm setting up the tripod on the car. And this guy walks over to me. He looks very official. He's obviously got a proper job. He's wearing a uniform. He's something in construction in the schoolyard. I have no clue about how that stuff works either. He comes up to me and he goes, "Nicole." I went, "Oh, blimey, I know I didn't get permission, but I promise not to, you know." He goes, "You don't remember me, do you?" Pause. Like long pause, like I'm supposed to say something. Just going, "Of course I do. It's Mick." He went, "Oh, no." He was really offended by that because that was someone else in our class. He goes, "No, it's, let's call him Paul Jones." So we've had the 25-year catch-up, you know, the what do you do, where do you do it, you know, why do you do it? And he said to me, "Oh, and I know what you do. I've seen you on television." I'm like, "Okay, that's great." My mum's standing beside me for this whole thing, this whole little reunion. Then he goes, "How's your brother?" I went, "Oh, he's tops. He's just tops." And my mum's a big fan. I think she's thrown in, "He's a pilot. He's a pilot." I think she's done that one. And he goes, "Oh, he's a really good guy. Yeah, I really liked your brother. He's pretty annoying, though. He could be really annoying." And I could see my mum, like, bristling. Like, "What? Random man saying about my son." He turns to me and he goes, "Remember how he never used to leave us alone?" And I went, "Ah." And it all came flooding back. So he used to try and get me to go behind the shed and kiss me in primary school when I was 12. I don't know if it was pre or post surgeries, I don't know. But this was someone I'd known from the age of 5. So from my accident all the way through. And he used to try and like get me to have a bit of a canoodle behind the shed. And clearly he remembered being frustrated in that. Which was really interesting. And also, just between you and me, he kind of looked like he might want to do it again as well. Again, Mum's standing there. I'm like, "Oh, this is awkward. God." But I spent a good part of my childhood fearing that would never happen for me. And I think that's something that everyone needs to realise about this as well. If we could go to the next slide, please. So I want to leave you with the absolute certainty that the people who count in your life now and in the future, oh, that's my little girl, next slide. Yeah, that's the one. That the people who count now and in the future, my spectacular husband, still holding it together, I'm doing so well, and wonderfully tight-knit, supportive group of family and friends, when they look into your eyes and when they look into your children's eyes, okay, and a lot of people in this room know how intensely vulnerable that can be, right? When they look into your eyes, they will just see you.